those of you on the East Coast. Good morning to those of you that are not. I'm Jody Grant. I'm the Executive Director of the Afterschool Alliance, and I am so excited to be here with this absolutely amazing group of panelists that you're going to get a chance to hear from today. I'm going to share the latest findings from our newest edition of America After 3, and then introduce you to each of our panelists. We are saving hopefully about 20 minutes time for questions. So please, if you have questions at any point, put them in the chat box and we'll try to get to them. If you're a member of the media, please put that in your question because we are going to prioritize media questions. About America After 3. So this is research that we have been conducting since 2004. We do it every 5 to 6 years. The last one that we completed was in 2014. And this is really the only opportunity we have to get a sense of what our kids are doing in the hours after school. I want to thank our supporters who made all of this research possible. The New York Life Foundation, Overdeck Family Foundation, the Wallace Group, the Wallace Foundation, SD Bechtel Jr. Foundation, Altria Group, the Walton Family Foundation, and the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation. We're really grateful and fortunate that these funders saw the value in this important research. There are many more details in the methodology that you can get in the actual report, but I'm just going to flag a couple of the big pieces for you. We worked with Edge Research to conduct this study. It includes more than 30,000 respondents, including almost 200 from every state. I should say almost at least 200 from every state, bigger states, more people. Surveys were conducted mostly online and supplemented with phone interviews. All of this data was collected between January and March of 2020. And then, of course, big changes in our world since the beginning of March 2020. So we supplemented our pre-pandemic data with a national survey in October that reached about 1,200 families to really get a perspective on what has changed since COVID hit. So I'm digging into our findings. Really kind of shocking. This new study paints a huge picture of unmet need, with the heaviest burden really falling on low-income families and families of color. There are 5 key takeaways from our research, and I'm going to spend a little bit of time touching on each one of these takeaways. The first one is unmet demand. We've always had a real issue with not serving as many kids as need after school programs, but this time it's been through the roof. So we have seen a surge in unmet demand for after school programs. We know that if after-school programs are available, half of non-participants, nearly 25 million children, would take advantage of these programs. That's up 60% since 2004. And this is the highest unmet demand that we've ever seen. We know that for every child that's in a program, the parents of 3 more would like their kid to be in a program. So if the programs were available for every kid that's in a program, we would see 3 more in programs. If we look more closely at this huge demand, we find that it is greatest for families of color, families with low income, those with children in elementary school, but across the board, really these numbers have been overwhelming and disappointing that we're not meeting the opportunities these kids so desperately need. One good piece of information is that we have seen the number of kids that are unsupervised go down since 2014. That said, we've seen a small increase in the number of the youngest kids, elementary school kids that are unsupervised. And those are also the parents that voice the biggest demand for more of these programs. Our second key takeaway, demand is surging as parents recognize the key benefits of after school. And this is really a great sign and a shout out to all of you on this call that are in the field, whether you're with a state network, with an intermediary, or most important, providing services to kids on the ground in person. There is a growing recognition of the wide range of benefits that after school programs are providing for young people and families. So, you know, when we look at this, we see quality. We see that more and more parents are truly recognizing the huge value that after school is playing in the role of our kids. And it's not just parents. I think we hear it across the board. understanding that after school is really preparing our kids for the future. Benefits to parents are also recognized. Programs are seen as a lifeline for working families. For families that are fortunate enough to have access to programs, parents report the highest level of satisfaction with their after-school program in the history of America after three. 94% are satisfied with their program. Again, this really attests to quality, and we have seen a lot of attention being paid to curriculum, technical assistance, improving quality of what's happening, social emotional learning at after school programs, and parents are noticing this. So kudos to all of you. Sadly, and this really came as a surprise to us, for the first time ever, we have seen a huge decline in the number of students attending after school programs. And when we ask parents the reasons for these declines, not a surprise. Lack of safe way to get to and from programs, a lack of available programs. These are all, these have always been the challenges for parents. Lack of available programs, too expensive, but considerable growth since 2014. And you can see from those numbers, huge jump in parents that are unable to get their kids to after school programs. And what does this translate to? It translates to the biggest decline we've seen since we began this survey of kids attending after school programs. So today there are 2.4, almost 2.5 million more kids that don't have after school opportunities than they did in 2014. And this is really troubling. What's even more troubling is that we know which kids have lost these opportunities, and it's really impacting low-income families. So the number of low-income kids that are no longer getting after-school benefits and access to all those resources is almost 2 million. And that's because, parents have struggled to pay themselves if they don't have support, and they just can't afford it anymore. We did look to see what was happening with public funding of after school. And this is a little bit of a bright spot. During this time period, about 2.1 million low-income young people are benefiting from publicly funded programs like the 21st Century Community Learning Centers. These programs are a lifeline for low-income families and their kids, but even these programs are not keeping up with the costs of equality and inflation. So if you look at federally funded after-school programs through 21st Century, in the past 6 years, funding has increased by 28 million. But if you adjust that for inflation, it's actually a $10 million cut. So we need to be doing more in the public sector because demand is through the roof, and we're clearly not serving the kids that need these services. So as you see this, and I'm sure you've recognized it, the inequities are growing, and the barriers for our low-income families, and particularly families of color, and those hurdles are getting bigger and bigger and making it harder and harder for their children to attend high-quality after-school programs. These barriers have grown since 2014, and as a result, the unmet demand has also grown. The inequities extend beyond participation in after school. They extend to out-of-school time activities overall. I'm sure you've all heard about pay to play, summer activities, one-off activities, and once again, kids who have the resources, whose parents have the resources, are managing to benefit from all of these activities because parents know it helps our kids succeed in life. And then we have a huge group of kids that are not getting to benefit. And the families in the highest income brackets now spend 5 times more on out-of-school time activities than those in the lowest income bracket. Our final takeaway, public funding. Support for public funding of after school has grown. And again, this is really a testament to the fact that more and more people are starting to understand not just the quality of after school, but all of the different things that go into an after-school program and how much all of these activities and resources matter to our kids. So we saw it was already a big number back in 2014, 84% of parents supported public investments in after school. It's now up to 87%. And this is across the board. This is truly bipartisan, Republican, independent, Democrat, rural, suburban, urban. After school is something that unites us. And the reason is because in every single one of the communities where there's a high quality after school program, we see the difference that it makes. Our research included, as I mentioned, a follow-up because we realized that sharing a bunch of pre-COVID statistics in the middle of pandemic, the natural question is, well, how have things changed? And the reality is, for those in the field, you know that after-school programs have been jumping through hoops, been contorting themselves to serve the needs of kids right now, both virtually and in person. And even amidst a global pandemic, parents notice this. And there are strong levels of support, continued strong levels of support for after-school programs. Of course, concerns about COVID dominate barriers to participation in after-school this fall, but it's the same barriers as before. Cost, which of course many of the programs that are running now, it's more expensive to run them because you need more space, more time, more staff, PPE, transportation, and lack of available programs. And we've seen that demand is almost identical. So for parents whose kids are not in programs right now, 49% would like their children to be in after-school programs. We also see that the importance of public investment is pretty strong. So it's at 85% of parents surveyed in our COVID survey said that they support public investments in after school. And lastly, while parents are struggling but managing, they do have a bunch of concerns about their kids. They want after-school programs to address more than academics. They're particularly concerned about some of the social losses, about screen time, about kids not interacting with caring adults or other kids for what's going on, 8 months now. So I think it's really important for the programs that are operating and as we come back to truly focus on the social emotional needs of kids and for many of them trauma, because this has been a traumatic experience. So we're about to get to our panelists, but I just wanted to flag a couple of things. First, our top 10 lists and our panelists, you're going to hear from some of the top 10 states. We actually have information on the top 10 states, but we have information on all 50 states as well as Washington, D.C. My state that I live in, you're going to find a national report, individual state fact sheets, infographics, a data dashboard, and so much more. So I encourage you all to go to our website so you can drill deeper into all of this data. Congratulations to the top 10 states. One of the real driving forces in all of those was quality. So it's really nice to see that recognized. And other factors included in this top 10 were the percentage of kids in after school, the hours kids spend in after school, how many kids are in self-care, and of course, satisfaction measures. And all of the states are doing great things, but these are the 10 that have made the biggest gains. So it is now my pleasure to introduce a brief video from U.S. Senator Lisa Murkowski from Alaska, one of our top 10 states, and she's asked us to share it with you today. Senator Murkowski is one of our most trusted and reliable after-school champions in the Senate. She has worked hard to protect and expand after-school opportunities, including right now during COVID, and families in Alaska and all across the country are so grateful and so lucky to have her support. So with that, give you Senator Murkowski.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you for inviting me to this special event. I'm glad to be here today to help the Afterschool Alliance release the 4th edition of its important report, America After 3 p.m., the nationwide survey on after-school demand, participation, and satisfaction. Now, as a proud Alaskan, I'm pleased that Alaska has ranked in the top 10 for after school. Compared to other states, We have a high level of after-school participation, and our students spend an above-average amount of time in their after-school programs. Alaskan parents are also very satisfied with the overall quality of our programs. We've been making steady gains since 2009, and today we're ranked 4th in the country overall and 1st in the variety of activities offered by programs across the state. Now, Alaska has ranked so high partly because of the federal investments in the 21st Century Community Learning Centers program, which I've been working hard at for more than a decade now, and state's investment from Alaska's Marijuana Education and Treatment Fund. Partly because the Alaska After School Network is an effective advocate for after-school programs and the children and the parents who rely on them. But mostly because Alaskans know that Alaska's high-quality after-school programs help our youth to succeed, both personally and academically, while working parents have the peace of mind in knowing that their kids are able to participate in safe, enriching activities after the school day ends. And yet, despite our comparative success in Alaska, there's a lot of work to do. For every child in an after-school program, 3 more are waiting to get in. That's more than 56,000 Alaskan kids who need an after-school program but don't have one. Sadly, that's true all across the country, where nearly 25 million U.S. students are not able to access an after-school program. We can do better. We must do better. And I'm dedicated to helping bring change. I've been a proud champion of after school for many years now. I've seen firsthand the many ways that these programs support children and families. The way that kids' faces light up each afternoon when they get to go to their after-school program where learning is fun, caring adults are all around, and skilled tutors and mentors help them overcome whatever hurdles they may face. I co-chair the Senate After School Caucus because I know that every child deserves an after-school program. And that's especially important now as we're struggling through COVID-19. And that's why I'm a lead sponsor of 21st CCLC Coronavirus Relief Act, which will put more resources into after school during this critical time, whether our children are learning remotely, in a hybrid model, or in their classes full-time. So thank you to the Afterschool Alliance for conducting the study. Thanks for letting me give you a few words here today. Be well, stay well. Take care.
So I just want to thank Senator Murkowski. As you can all see, she is extraordinary. And one of my favorite things is to actually do events with Senator Murkowski because she is so fabulous and cares so deeply about our children and our youth. I do want to flag that she said something really important, which is, the biggest takeaway from this study is the demand. It is soaring. The fact that for every kid that's in a program, we have 3 more that want to be in programs, and we do need to do something about it. And I'm glad to see that Senator Murkowski is helping us in a bipartisan way to really do something and make a difference and start addressing this vast unmet need. It is now my pleasure to introduce another amazing champion for after school, Zelda Waymer. Zelda is the executive director of the South Carolina After School Alliance, one of 50 state after school networks across the country. And in this effort, she leads a team that is committed to transforming South Carolina by investing in children and youth in the hours beyond the school day. Zelda.
Thank you, Jody, and good afternoon. And good morning to our West Coast friends. I've been working in after school for close to 28 years, working to make high quality programs available to all children and youth. I know that every student who has access to a program has greater connections to caring adults, greater support academically, and greater possibilities to succeed in life. This issue is very important to me, not just as an after-school professional, but also as the mother of an African-American teen who knows how important it is to keep youth engaged during the hours when they aren't in school. That's especially important now during the pandemic, when school hours are reduced, uncertain, and in flux. Throughout my career, more times than I can count, I've witnessed students, especially teens, who may start out disinterested, disengaged, until an after-school program turns that around. I've seen teens become engaged and enthusiastic as they learn to develop their own ideas, master them, pitch them, defend them, share the research they found to support them. And in doing so, recognize the impact that they can have in school, in their communities, and throughout their lives. I've been on the receiving end when parents say, "Thank you for transforming my child's outlook and future." Those parents always say they hope we can expand programs in other areas of the state, especially rural areas. Right now, unfortunately, as this study shows, most states across the country can't. We aren't making these transformative experiences available to enough students and students from low-income families of color. Too often are left behind. Needs to change very soon. We should all be deeply concerned about the inequities evident in the data. We should look carefully at the data where parents report roadblocks to participation, and especially at what low-income parents say about cost, access, and lack of transportation. Together, we must overcome these roadblocks. One of the things I'm most excited about for South Carolina and for the country is the incredibly strong satisfaction with after school that parents express. 94% of parents nationally are satisfied with the after-school programs that their child participates in. That's up from 89% in 2014. The National After-School Field has been hard at work over the last 6 years with advancing quality standards, trainings, and technical assistance for the field. In South Carolina, we've piloted and then expanded a quality improvement system that certainly shows in our data with a whopping 97% of parents satisfied with their after-school programs. We are grateful to South Carolina lawmakers for supporting improvements to after-school programs here. We've also focused our efforts on expanding STEM learning opportunities in after-school programs. Most recently, as a part of the Million Girls Moonshot initiatives, it's great to see engaging in STEM learning, how it shows up, and one of the key benefits parents associate with after-school participation. I want to talk for a minute about how after-school programs have been reaching out to help students and their families since COVID-19 hit us all. It's been incredible, remarkable, and truly inspiring. There's a program in Georgetown, South Carolina, that has been providing a box of essentials, including soap, deodorant, as well as meals to families on a regular basis. There's a program in Florence, South Carolina, a rural community where many grandparents are raising grandchildren in their homes without internet access. After-school staff have stepped up to set up hotspots and help grandparents navigate through the numerous virtual platforms. I could share similar stories like this for practically every program in South Carolina and across the nation. I'm looking forward to using this data to demonstrate both how far we've come as a field and how far we still have to go. The South Carolina Afterschool Alliance is committed to working with a variety of partners across the state to broaden opportunities for all young people in the state. I know that our after-school network partners across the nation share the same focus. We've made tremendous gains, but there is much work yet to be done. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Zelda. And now I have the honor of introducing you to Rico X. Rico is the Vice President of School Age Services at the YMCA of Middle Tennessee. where he has oversight of 119 school-based after-school programs in the Nashville area. Rico is going to share with us how his programs have adapted in the midst of COVID and the important, and I would say essential, role that they are playing for families in Nashville and the Nashville area. Rico.
All right. Thank you so much for having me, Jody. And like you said, I want to share kind of a snapshot of our program as well as what we've been doing during this pandemic. And so, again, with the YMCA Middle Tennessee, and we operate a program called the YMCA Fund Company in the Nashville area. We operate about 115 school-based locations and 4 school districts in the Middle Tennessee area. We provide high-quality before and after-school programs that are licensed by the state of Tennessee or Department of Human Services. And typically, we serve an average of about 5,500 elementary and middle school students every day. Some of the general components of our program are that we provide space for homework time. A major component of our program is healthy living, and that comes in the form of providing healthy snacks and meals as well as structured physical activity. And then finally, we provide a whole host of extended learning activities in the after-school time. So literacy, STEM, cultural and art enrichment, and social emotional learning enrichment activities. And like many programs, there has been a demand that we are not able to fully meet. Approximately a third of our programs, and this is pre-COVID, had waiting lists. And each year, our program receives like 3 to 4 inquiries from schools asking to launch after-school programs at their site. So we see that there's just an endless need for programs that support young people in the after-school hours. So what have our operations looked like during the pandemic? Well, this year we've received a lot of information regarding what and even who is essential, and that can sometimes be debatable. But one thing that is not debate is the fact that after-school programs are essential. They are a cornerstone to any local economy and the working parents that are in it. And so when our state and local governments began to shut down, we immediately began to receive calls from hospitals, first responders, municipalities, and of course our existing parents, all asking, what am I going to do with my kid? I have to go to work. And so, our YMCA, along with, so many others around the country, we were able to set up a safe and high quality in-person emergency site for children of essential workers. And our state alliance of YMCAs here in Tennessee received a grant from the Department of Human Services that enabled us to offer this at no charge to parents. And since April, collectively, we've served over 14,000 children of essential workers with this funding across the state. So from late March to August, we operated these all-day emergency sites with many of the same programmatic components that I mentioned earlier. And then when school opened back up in August, it became very complicated for us because each of our school districts were doing something a little bit different. So hybrid, virtual, in-person, so on and so forth. Like so many providers out there, we had to navigate through all of these different dynamics. In school districts that are in person, we operate our normal before and after school programming. But with that, we have seen a decrease of capacity by about 40% due to just COVID safety protocols and just, social distancing and spacing. In Nashville, we started the school year virtually, and during this time, we have operated virtual learning centers where students came to select locations, and our staff helped students log into their classes in the morning and early afternoon hours, and then we provided enrichment activities during the normal after-school hours. Some of the challenges that we have faced and will face are obviously just continuing to navigate through school system decision-making relative to this pandemic. There's still a lot of uncertainty, and so any decision that they make, we have to adjust and make those adjustments relative to that. And so just everything from safety protocols to contact tracing. It has definitely been, very challenging for us. And beyond that, I would say meeting program demand is an issue that we face as well. I mean, we've had to reduce our capacity at locations that are in person. In terms of our virtual learning centers, all of those filled up in one day. So that is a need that we just consistently see and have to meet. And one of the things that we are doing is we're lobbying to get this grant funded extended so that we can continue to be of service to families. I think to be able to provide this at no cost to parents has been a blessing to so many families across the state. And then looking ahead, I think one of the things that we are really going to encounter is how can we as a program be better partners with our school systems to address academic and social emotional learning gaps that have been caused due to the isolation during this pandemic. So, in closing, I want to say that it's very easy for me to sit here today and report on what my program has done, but I would be remiss if I didn't say how grateful I am for my frontline staff, my leadership team for orchestrating all of this, as well as the staff who have worked so hard to provide registration, marketing, IT, and hiring support necessary to pull off this extraordinary work. So with that, I want to thank you for the opportunity for me to share today, and I will hand it back to you, Jody.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much, Rico. And thank you and all of the staff at your program and all the staff around our country that are just literally doing extraordinary things to meet the needs of kids and families during what is truly a crisis. And speaking of kids and families, it is now my pleasure to introduce you to Stacy Medford. Stacy is the single mom of a 6-year-old daughter, Skylar, who we may or may not get to see. She's a first grader who attends the Leadership Academy at John T. White Elementary School in Fort Worth, Texas. And Stacy's joining us today to share just how important her daughter's after-school program is for their family. Thank you, Stacy.
Thank you, Jody, and thank you to the Afterschool Alliance for inviting me here today. I just wanted to give a parent's perspective on the survey results. I have a 6-year-old, Skylar, a 6-year-old daughter. She's in the first grade in the after-school program here in Fort Worth, Texas. And I also have nieces and nephews as well that attend here in Fort Worth. It wasn't easy for us to find an after-school program for our kids that will work with our income. So I really had to search for a school that had an after-school program that did not charge. So I actually decided to move in the area that I'm in right now because I knew that John T. White had an after-school program. So that really helped me out because I work a 9 to 6. Everybody in my family, they work a basic 9 to 6 job, and I didn't have anyone to pick her up. So the after school program and actually keep her during the times I was at work. So the after school program worked because it was extended to 6 o'clock, which is very rare to find that also in our area. And so when I found out that John T. White had it, I went to the orientation, and Miss Deborah, she did the presentation. She was really nice, and it just seems like they have a real great care team at the John T. White location here in Fort Worth. She was really nice, and she really cares for the children. You can tell that once she explains the program and how it works. The program, it's really been awesome for me. I love it. They do a lot of programs. Such as program activities such as science and projects and arts and crafts. And she brings home her creations and her pictures, and I post them on the refrigerator. So I have a lot of things that I've stuffed away in boxes to keep for the future to come to show her what she's done in the past. And she's always excited when I pick her up in the evenings. They have meals before I pick her up. So once I pick her up, it at least allows me time to get home and try to prepare something, and she can wait and not be starved, all the way starved out by the time I get her from the after school program at 6. And the thing that I love most about the program that I want to touch on is that it works well in the afternoons, and you can see the way that the caretakers really know the children. Just like, for an example, Skylar, she's out for quarantine right now from one of the teachers tested positive for COVID, so she didn't go to the after school program. So Ms. Deborah, she called me actually today, and she was like, "What happened to Skylar?" She asked me what happened to Skylar. I was like, well, one of the students or the teachers, they tested positive for COVID. So that was the reason why she did not attend the program on yesterday. So she was like, okay. She was like, well, just wanted to make sure she was doing okay and everything was all right, and asked me if I needed anything, let her know. So the after school program, it really is a good program. It's kind of like almost like a family based. I feel like we're family with the after school program. Also, what I like about the after school program is that even though it's been tough due to COVID, they do take a lot of precautions as far as making sure that children are safe. I know they have to keep their masks on, there's social distancing, and they also sterilize the building after the children leave. So they sterilize it like 15 minutes after the program has ended at 6 o'clock. So they're doing everything that they could possibly do to keep the children safe. And I actually really can't imagine Skylar not going to the after school program. This will be her second year attending. We started last year, and I look forward to it. I hurry up and signed her up once I knew that they could attend after school. And I also tried to get her signed up doing the virtual as well, because I know they were doing that. But for the most part, I'm glad that it's back in effect, and it's a great program. I do feel lucky because I know there are other areas in Fort Worth, Texas, that do not offer the after school program. I've even had one of my aunts, she called and was trying to find a place for a cousin of mine to see how did I get into the after school program. And she was letting me know that the school didn't offer the after school program, and it was hindering her and her daughter because she got off at 5:30, and it was they didn't have anyone to pick them up from school or watch them. So, I mean, it does help the after school program. And hearing Jody share the survey results and tell us just how many parents are unable to find programs for their children, it's really disturbing. And I really do feel lucky that I am able to put my daughter in the after school program, because if it was not for the after school program, it would really put me in a financial strain. And I'm just glad because she's safe and I don't have any concerns at this point. So hopefully it just continues to go on like it's been going on, and we can keep on living our lives stress-free. Yeah, thank you for having me here, and thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, Stacy, thank you so much for taking the time to share with us, from a real live parent, about the difference that after school makes, and to highlight. I mean, it's extraordinary that you actually moved somewhere because of the after school program, but it just highlights again this huge demand for these programs, and the fact that we're not meeting that demand, and we desperately need to do more. So we are now eager to answer your questions. So please, if you have questions, put them in the chat box. Again, if you're with the media, please highlight that you're with the media, because we do want to prioritize your questions. I also want to introduce one of my colleagues at the Afterschool Alliance, Nikki Yamashiro. the Afterschool Alliance's Vice President for Research. Nikki's been working round the clock to get ready for today's release, and she'll help with any data questions. So Nikki, thank you for your leadership on this absolutely critical study. So the first question I have, and I'm gonna repeat it, is how do we solve the problem of low-income kids being without after-school opportunities? And would you like to see changes to 21st century learning centers? Should states or programs be doing something differently? And I think the answer, first of all, is programs are doing a great job. And we're seeing that from the parent satisfaction. We're seeing that from the variety of programs being offered and curriculum being offered. We're seeing that from the increase in support for public investments in after school. So kudos to the programs out there. The problem is that for so many parents, these programs are just too expensive, or they don't exist in their area. And I think parents that were struggling to pay in the past can no longer afford them. So what we really need to be doing is increasing our public investments, because what we know is that kids that are in after-school programs are more likely to stay in school and graduate. And it's not just the academic support, it's all of the enrichment that really provides a foundation for the workforce skills that our kids need. So when we're looking at numbers and we see that for every child in an after-school program, 3 more would be in programs if the funding were there, we've got to do something about that funding. And I would also say that while 21st Century Community Learning Centers has been a lifeline for families, it hasn't kept up with inflation, and it's never kept up with demand. So we need to be thinking about, at every level, federal, state, local, what we can do to invest more in our after-school programs. And we know that every dollar invested is going to lead to at least $3 back in kids' success, graduation rates, returns on investment. So really, really essential to be continuing to build support for more public investments in this space. That's going to make a huge difference. So next question. A question for Stacy. So this is from Youth Today. Can you clarify, did you say you moved to take advantage of an after-school program? So can you just talk a little bit more about you know, how you chose this program, and did it impact where you chose to live?
I did in fact move over to this area. I was still living in Fort Worth, but there's other districts within Fort Worth ISD elementary schools that I wanted to move to the area because I like the area as far as the location, but they did not have the after school program at the school. So it was just like, I liked the area that I wanted to move to, but I decided to move to this area that I kind of not so much wanted to live. I didn't want to live in this area, but I moved because I knew John T. White offered the after school program. So I picked the school based off of that. That was really basically it. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you. So I saw another question about just federal funding and just asking for a status update. And so for those of you reading the paper, you know, we're waiting for final appropriations. When it comes out, we're hoping for a very small increase to 21st Century. There was an increase of $13 billion in the House bill and nothing in the Senate bill. As you can see from this study we just released, that's not gonna make a huge difference in this. It will make a difference, but the demand is huge. So we, you know, need to be doing much more than that across the board. Also, you heard Senator Murkowski mention, she and Senator Smith of Minnesota, so bipartisan effort, before the election introduced legislation to provide an additional $1.2 billion into after school for COVID, which is absolutely essential to really support programs that are doing in-person, that are doing virtual, because as many of us know that our parents, after school now is all day long. And so programs are, and you heard Rico talk about how they're jumping through hoops to really serve the needs of families. So, so we're watching and hoping that there will be a COVID relief bill that will have some money earmarked for after school. Right now, the previous COVID bills, we can tap into some of the resources that are there through childcare, potentially through education, but an earmark for after school would make a huge, huge difference. Okay, another question, which is, what has the pandemic meant for after school? Has demand dropped since there's been such a dramatic drop in the number of people who are employed? Are there enough resources for after school going forward? So I'll start, but I actually would really love to have our panelists jump in on this. And I think the answer to that is the need for after school has actually increased and not decreased. What we found from day one back in March was that after school programs were adapting to try and meet the needs of kids and families. In some cases, they were serving essential workers. In some cases, they were doing grab and go meal deliveries, helping people sign up for unemployment benefits, checking in to make sure kids and families were okay, doing meal deliveries, lesson plan deliveries, providing academic support, and providing virtual programming in many cases all day long to supplement that was going on with the school. And we have been doing surveys of the field throughout the pandemic. And what we have seen is that despite concerns about costs in the future, that 90% of programs are operating at some level right now. 27% of the programs in our survey are operating in person with children of essential workers. And more now, we're seeing after school programs start to create what we call hubs and learning centers, where kids can come all day long, do their virtual schoolwork, get academic support, and get enrichment support. And, you know, we need to remember that's a whole bunch of kids for a variety of reasons cannot learn at home. And so having them in a safe environment where they can learn is really imperative. And that's part of the reason why some additional funding right now is so essential, both during COVID, and then as we start to recover, after school can be a place where we can really support kids and keep them safe, both physically and mentally. But I'd love to have some of our other panelists chime in on that, especially to talk about, you know, what you're seeing at the local and state level.
Yeah, just from my perspective, I would say that the demand definitely has not dropped at all. I mean, I think that during this time, there's even more of a critical need to engage the young people. And I think one of the roles that after school programs has served is just being another entity that works alongside the school system to help to provide those resources directly to young people. And so, I mean, similarly that to what Jody mentioned, I mean, we have done different things like, you know, having grab and go sites and participating in those efforts. We, as I mentioned before, we've operated in-person all-day programming. We also have other programs within our association that are providing after-school programming virtually, and you know that can be a challenge, especially if kids are already, you know, in school virtually. But you know, those touch points are so much more needed, and so I think that, you know, for us, it really is about, you know, how can our state and other states be creative with these funds that we're receiving. Some of the funding streams that we've gotten to make this program possible has come from a combination of CARES Act funding, Community Development Block Grant, even TANF. So I think that it's important from an advocacy standpoint to really get with your state legislators and advocate for creative ways to leverage funding so that, you know, we put providers in a position to be as supportive as possible to the young people and their families during this time.
And I would just like to add, excuse me, would just like to add that, you don't think about after school programs impacting the economy, but when you're looking at most states trying to get families and back to work, in most cases, they can't get back to work because without after school programs. And so after school programs are not only contributing to the economic development of a lot of the states, in addition to, serving the parents by making sure their kids are safe.
Yeah, thank you both. And of course, that's a really important note, because for those of us that are lucky enough to be employed and able to work in our homes, it's pretty hard to do that when you have kids around that are also trying to do schoolwork. And then, of course, as many parents that don't have that luxury and they are going out and they need support, or they're going out and looking for jobs and they need that support. There was another question in the chat room about what are some of the other supports for after school? And I would say the easy answer is there's so many, and some of this is all on our webpage. But when we look both pre-COVID and during COVID, there are a host of resources that go into funding after school. Primarily, when we did a study of this, it's parents, and that's why we're seeing, this huge demand, because parents cannot, particularly low-income parents, afford these programs on their own. But there's also from HHS, there are childcare dollars that can be used for school-age childcare. Department of Agriculture is huge, particularly when we're feeding kids in after-school programs. There's some funding from the National Science Foundations and other government agencies. There are absolutely a bunch of states, California in particular, New York, where there's state funding streams, and then there's also local funding streams. And yes, philanthropy is an important piece of this, but philanthropy can't come close to the government dollars. And just an indication of that, about $600 million from the CARES Acts have gone to support after-school programs. So that is primarily childcare money and governor's discretionary money. Education dollars can be used to support after school, but we have not seen a lot of that happen yet, which is why we feel so strongly that we need a separate funding stream. And while that sounds like a lot of money and it's making a big difference, it's nowhere near enough. As you heard from Rico, there are waiting lists, and so many of our programs were originally operating 3 hours a day, and then now operating all day long. Many of them can't use the school facilities they were in, so they have to rent new facilities. The staff to student ratio is diminished, and they need PPE. So to cover all these costs, we need, a big one-time investment where we can really make sure that we can serve more of the kids that need these programs. And I don't know if Zelda or Rico want to add to that. All right, well, I'm going to answer another question then, which was somebody asked about libraries, and libraries are a huge partner. So both pre-COVID and during COVID, they are, a place where they are, after school programs. Some of them are schools, some of them are multi-site, some of them are based in libraries. Libraries have some incredible curriculum that they offer kids. And of course, in many places like, San Francisco, where they have hubs, libraries are some of the sites where kids are actually able to learn all day long, which is, really tremendous. So I think libraries are an essential partner in the after-school world.
And I'll jump in really quickly here too, just to add from our America After 3 p.m. survey, we see that play out. We asked parents with children who are in after school programs, the providers of those programs, and 7% said that their child after school program was run by a library. And the survey we did in October, 10% of those parents said that their program was run by a library. So we can see pre-pandemic, during the pandemic, libraries continue to be an important part of supports in the after school space.
Thank you so much, Nikki. The next question was, really terrific one, which is that, this survey found a huge jump in the barriers parents are facing in accessing after school programs for their kids. And that's really the biggest takeaway, that demand is higher than ever and these barriers are bigger than ever. And so the question is, now, how has the pandemic impacted this? And from our surveys of the field, it's gotten worse. So what we've seen is, low-income parents are less likely to be accessing any kind of after-school enrichment right now during COVID, and much less likely to have access to in-person programs. So it's really troubling, and it's very much, we have seen that the lack of opportunities that existed before have been exacerbated by COVID. And it's really something, the sooner we can start addressing that, the better. So we have a question about what's the best way to advocate for more funding for after school programs. And I would say, sign up for our email alerts. Wherever you are, use your voice to advocate for the need for more investments in after school at the local level, at the state level, at the national level. Sign up for your state newsletter, because all of your voices are what help us make a difference. And in previous years, when after school programs have been under threat or in line for increases, it is the voices of all of you that have made a difference. Sorry, I'm just trying to follow up with all these questions. So the question is, do you think these America After 3 p.m. survey results illustrate the widening gap between rich and poor in this country? I would say, sadly, yes. What we're seeing is that it's low-income parents, and that next level of lower middle-class parents. Those are the ones that can no longer afford after-school opportunities. And at the same time, we're seeing all of this data, all of this research on the adolescent brain, on the importance of social emotional learning, the importance of workforce development, that after school programs are more important than ever. And it's clear that, parents see that, it's clear that voters see that, yet we are taking these opportunities away from a whole host of kids. And this isn't a zero-sum game. I mean, the great news is, with more resources, we can reach more kids. So it's just a matter of finding the will to find those resources and provide them to kids. And I would absolutely say that is the key takeaway from this study, which is that, we're seeing support for after school and grow more than ever. We're seeing parents happier than ever with the quality of programs their kids are attending, but we're seeing that demand is exorbitant, and that we are nowhere close to having the supply of programs to meet that demand.
I would just like to add, excuse me, that during these times, creativity and innovation is key. And I'll give you an example. This summer, every summer, we partner with Claflin University in South Carolina, where we offer this biomaterial program for rising 10th, 11th, and 12th graders. And this past summer, we thought maybe we wouldn't be able to offer the program, but we had to be innovative, and we actually offered it online and had an opportunity to provide the students with research material at home to conduct research, and also participate in youth entrepreneurship and earn skills, 21st century skills. So just to add that, this is the time, if you have a creative and innovative mind, this is the time to do it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Zelda. There was a question about state funding, and I just wanted to, wanted to say that on the individual state pages, we have more information about, each state, but it doesn't drill down to the level of philanthropic donations or non-public donations. But I would also say that it's not that high. When we did a study several years ago, the amount of money that philanthropy puts in, which is absolutely essential, but it pales in comparison to the public dollars. So when you look at, the businesses of philanthropic investments, those are absolutely important, and they're great ways to build quality. But it's, less than 3% of the money going into after school overall.
And Jody, I was going to add, I think there was a similar question around, I think like smaller nonprofits versus major. And one of the things I would just encourage, if you are already not, make sure that you're become part of those state and local after school networks. Those are so just very important because they not only help to provide advocacy on a state or local level for funding opportunities, but oftentimes can serve as like critical leads for funding opportunities that may be coming down the pipeline. And so I think the more that you kind of align and connect yourself with those different networks within the state or even on the local level, many states have like local hubs. I think that increases your chances as a quote unquote smaller nonprofit that is trying to look for funding opportunities to support your program. So that would be my encouragement to everybody.
And in South Carolina, we've been fortunate enough to receive state dollars and provide up to $10,000 to after school programs to help with PPE equipment, to hire more staff. And also, I just want to add, when it comes to the private foundations, they have been, incredible during these times. With the statewide networks, we're fortunate enough to have great funders like the Mott Foundation and STEM Next, where they allow us to look at how we can, use funding at the best of our needs, looking at our needs and how we can use those resources best.
Thanks. So I know we are running out of time. So I'm going to throw out a question to Nikki, which is the satisfaction from parents based on the availability of after-school childcare or the narrowing of the opportunity gap? Do current programs have the resources to support narrowing the opportunity gap?
So the slide that Jody shares in the PowerPoint, it's satisfaction with the child's after-school program overall. But if you go to our America After 3 p.m. landing page, you can see we also ask parents about their level of satisfaction with a number of areas, including availability, cost, location, activities and supports that after-school programs provide. So you can see both at the national level and at the state level what parents are saying in terms of their satisfaction. But for the slide that Jody shared with the 94%, that's just talking about parent satisfaction, thinking about their after-school program overall.
So thank you so much. I realize that we have run over. I want to say a huge thank you to all of our tremendous panelists. A huge thank you to Nikki for all the work you've done on this, to Chandler behind the scenes, and Lisa and Ursula and Jen behind the scenes for making this all happen. And also let all of you know that we're not done answering your questions. So if we didn't catch them, please email us. Let us know. We are happy to get back to you. I encourage you all to look into the report because there's a lot more detail there, particularly at the state level, and know that we're going to have future reports coming out on things like health and wellness with an emphasis on social emotional learning, on summer. We're going to have a report on rural America. So stay tuned, stay well. And please help us do all we can to spread the word that we really need to do more so that more of these great after-school programs can reach more of our kids. Thank you.